I'm Luke Storey. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Life Stylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. So, dude, here we are. We're about to vibe.
We're here. We're vibing already.
All right. Before you came over, I did a short session, not as long as I would have hoped, on the V.I.B.E Bed. Mm-hmm. And then Dylan, who's here assisting today, he's like, "What's that thing? A massage table?" And I said, "Just wait." And so once we were all set up, I put an eye mask on him and put him on the V.I.B.E Bed. And I just selected the first track because it's the one that I've been playing the past couple of days. And then I left him alone and I went outside and took an ice bath, did my thing.
Oh.
And I came back in and I kind of like tapped the table or the bed and he didn't move. And I thought, man, I think he's in the zone.
Yeah.
And then I had to like tap his shoulder and then he did the eye flutter thing. Yeah. He was in like full theta zone.
Totally.
Just completely under the spell, which is, it's always fun for me to have people come over and experiment on them in my Frankenstein laboratory. So we have one participant here that can vouch for the efficacy of what you're doing today. But
you have an amazing Frankenstein laboratory. I love it. Yeah, you were showing me around the other day. You got all the toys. So you know what? There's a lot of these kinds of spaces developing all over the world. And as all these cool Frankenstein technology you have, if you don't have a V.I.B.E technology, you're missing a direct access point into the connective tissue. And I feel like that's my role in this world of biohacking and in this world of ascension and consciousness technology and optimal human performance technology is how do we get in and work with the connective tissue specifically? And that's what we're offering here with the V.I.B.E systems.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's one thing that resonates with me. No pun intended.
Or intended, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I sped read your book, which we've got here for those watching on the video, Primal Resonance. And of course, you know, as I'm reading through it, I'm like, yes. It's so in alignment with so many of the things we talk about here on the podcast and things that, you know, have really assisted me in my awakening and health journey and everything that's going on. So I want to touch on a few of those things and of course, touch on the technology. But I think a great place to start would just be, you know, a brief introduction as to how you went from the field of chiropractic into these healing technologies. You know, as we've talked, you've been into all kinds of different biofeedback and explored all of these different realms of healing. So how did you first get into that journey and what made you decide to kind of pivot from chiropractic and get into this world that we're in now?
Great question. In fact, I had a meeting this morning and they asked me the exact same question. And I was like, oh, this is probably a warm-up for the podcast here today. And I'll share with you exactly what I said to them. I actually feel that I'm doing the highest expression of chiropractic because chiropractic is actually not about a neck adjustment or moving bones. It's about removing interference from the nervous system. And I remember asking myself that question early on because I'm a very good adjuster. I love adjusting the spine. My background as a chiropractor in undergrad is in sports medicine. That's what brought me into this whole journey to begin with. And my mother was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease when I was in chiropractic school. And my father's a pharmacist. So I grew up in a pharmacy. So I have a lot of, but they're also we also had a health food store in the 70s and 80s in my father's pharmacy in New Jersey. So we've kind of been it's been a very, I have an interesting family for sure.
I got to ask, when you were a teenager, did you and your friends jack drugs from the pharmacy?
You know, interestingly
Wait, your dad might listen to this.
No, my dad, you know what? I actually never really, no. In fact, we actually, when I went forward into like my 20-year high school reunion, I was hanging out with all my high school friends. They were all talking about how they'd go into the parking lot and smoke pot. And I said to them, nobody ever invited me to smoke pot with them, you know? So I never really grew up like that. That wasn't really my thing. And what I think is an interesting caveat to the story was when I was a little boy, I was diagnosed with ADD, which was ironically the first year. ADD was a new diagnosis, ironically the first year that Ritalin was available on the market. And my father and my mother made a conscious decision that they did not want to put me on Ritalin. and that they would put me onto this program called the Feingold diet. Has that crossed your path at all?
No.
It was basically an elimination diet where they would do muscle testing and find out what allergies you had or what you had imbalances in your body. So when I was a young boy, I wasn't eating chocolate. I wasn't eating sugar. I found that I was allergic to fluorescent lighting, and they would balance that with copper. So I used to wear a lot of copper when I was a kid. And it's interesting because I still love copper. Like I have this big Patango ring here. And so this is how I grew up. And I really believe that because I was not taking pharmaceuticals at a young age, I've had my fair share of experiences through my life with basically everything. But I am far from someone of an addictive personality, and I'm far from somebody that has addictive tendencies. And I don't crave or have any kind of real dependencies on any kind of drugs or pharmaceuticals. And I really relate that back to that pivotal moment where my folks chose not to put me on pharmaceuticals at such a young age, because I think my life would have been completely different. So thank you, Mom and Dad.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
You're fortunate. I just had to ask that question because I'm thinking about, man, if anyone in my family owned a pharmacy when I was a teenager, we would have been having some fun, dog.
Well,
drugstore cowboy for real, but you don't even have to break in.
Yeah, well, you're
just
like,
Mom, do you want me to go clean up the shop?
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So your parents have a which is very progressive, I'm assuming also in New Jersey in the 70s. So they have a combination health food store and pharmacy. And so it sounds like you were exposed to the alternative health model prior to, and then that eventually kind of led you into chiropractic.
That's also a very fascinating story. I never went to a chiropractor growing up my entire life. But I was in college, and my roommate in undergrad, we were driving back to New Jersey together. I went to school at Northeastern University in Boston. So I was driving from Boston back to New Jersey, and he was a business major. And he said to me, I think I'm going to go to chiropractic school. And I was at Northeastern for sports medicine. So I was taking a lot of science classes and all that at the time. And something just kind of clicked in my mind because I had never been to a chiropractor before. And I went home over that break, and I walked into my neighborhood chiropractor who I'd never seen before, knew nothing really about it other than I knew that I think it was kind of like sports medicine. That was the most my mind knew of a chiropractor. And I spent this afternoon with Dr. Ronald Parente, and I left there that day saying to myself, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. Like it was, and then he was like, I'm filling in for this chiropractor. Come to my home office. So I spent the weekend with him in this really cool home office that he had set up. And that was it. I went to all my prerequisites were already done except for organic chemistry. I went up to Northeastern. I took organic chemistry over the next year and then went to New York Chiropractic College. But I remember telling my mother that I was thinking about going to chiropractic school. And she said to me, wow, that's really interesting. And I said, why is that? And she said that when she was pregnant with me, she got a cold and didn't want to take any medications. So she went to the chiropractor and got adjusted. So I got adjusted in utero. So my patients would come in to see me pregnant, and they say, oh, are there any, potential side effects to getting adjusted as pregnant? And I said, the only side effect is that your child may grow up to become a chiropractor.
Right. That reminds me of something I wanted to learn about at some point. I guess I will. Maybe you'll know something about it. But at some point in my journeys, I've come across parents that see this special kind of kid chiropractor that adjusts babies and stuff. Yeah. Did you ever adjust like tiny infants? And there's like little infant yoga and chiropractic scene there somewhere that I touched upon in a moment and then just kind of lost track of it. Do you know anything about that?
We have, I have some magical baby adjustment stories. And these were in the earliest days. Because think about it. When I was in chiropractic school, I was in my mid to early 20s, single, so where are you going to learn to adjust a baby unless you have a baby available? And nobody is letting a 20-something-year-old single man student adjust their babies, so that's just not happening. But in school, we learned about how to adjust babies. And I remember this one lecture, the teacher, my professor was saying that because the baby's bones, it's all cartilage. And it hasn't developed yet. They're not even weight bearing completely. And they have all these writing reflexes. That's why they're all hunched over, that you don't start getting your secondary curves until you start, like lifting your head up and standing up. And so what you do is you just make little contacts over usually the pelvis and the atlas. That's essentially how you adjust the child. And then you just very lightly apply maybe some tapping or light pressure. And I remember one of my classmates said, how long do you hold the pressure for? And the instructor said, you'll just know. So kind of stored that away in my memory bank somewhere. And within my first month of being a professional chiropractor, right out of school, I had a job in a gym in Pennsylvania. And the aerobics instructor was having this colicky baby. She had this little newborn baby. And she said, would you mind if I bring my baby to you? And it's really amazing how like 1 week you can be a student and the following week you can be like a licensed doctor and everything changes, right? So I'm like, sure, bring your baby to me. And I brought so it was the mother, the massage therapist, and myself. We were all in this room, and this screaming baby is like freaking out on the massage table. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do here? And so I put the baby over on its stomach, and then it starts like kind of having this writing reflex. So the neck doesn't relax. So then I roll the baby over, and like I said, it's freaking out. And I just go back to what I remember in school, like just check the pelvis and check the atlas. So I went in and I just put I checked the pelvis, did a little very mild, and then just put a little contact on the atlas. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, you'll know when it's done. You'll know when it's done. You know when it's done. And the baby's screaming. And then all of a sudden, the baby just like looks me dead in the eyes, stops crying, and cracks this huge smile. And I picked up the baby and I said, your baby's done. And everybody in the room saw it and had this like look of amazement, including myself, on my face. Like, wow, that's really cool. And so my sister had a baby shortly after that. And I told her that story. She's like, get out. Like, that's incredible. And my nephew, he was also having colicky issues. And we went upstairs and I did the exact same thing. And the exact same result happened.
Wow.
With him and right in front of my sister. So I've treated many babies, children. In my practice in Colorado, I treated a lot of kids, usually more, little kids. I mean, I guess they all ranged, really. Yeah, we saw babies to teenagers and then obviously adults into seniors. A lot of learning disability, concentration issues, Down syndrome, autistic spectrum disorders, just everything we would see. And in fact, my big spiritual awakening happened with energy medicine. My background's in sports medicine. So the whole energy spiritual awakening thing was not anything on my radar at all. In fact, when I was in chiropractic school, I dated girls that were learning about like Reiki and energy work. And I had some introductions into that, but there was nothing that I was super called into. But it's interesting how the universe works, how it kind of just starts guiding you. These are like little seeds that guides you into what you're going to be doing later on in life. And a major breakthrough that happened for me was in 2000 when I was having my spiritual awakening in Denver, Colorado. And I had just made a commitment that this was my new path other than sports medicine. And I love sports medicine. It's still a major passion of mine, but I was moving into working with bioenergetic medicine. This was within the earliest days. I mean, I'm talking maybe the first month or two of this thing. I was reading Cryon books. You familiar with Cryon? Cryon is a channeled being. Whoa.
Actually, that's really weird, dude. Someone that I recently interviewed before we started recording, and I'll allow them to remain anonymous because they didn't do it while we were recording. But I'm pretty sure that we did a little opening prayer, pre-recording, as I said. And I think they asked that entity or being to come in and bless I'm going to double check with them, but that name I think is what it was.
Cryon.
Interesting.
Lee Carroll channels Cryon. He's got decades and hundreds of volumes of this channeled information. And I knew nothing about it, but it's what came in, and I started reading these Cryon books right in 2000, just with the whole new millennia. And I got introduced to the whole concept around indigo children. Have you had any shows? Have you interviewed anybody? Have you heard of indigo children?
I've heard the term, but I've not delved into it.
Oh, so this is really fascinating. So my sister was having a baby in 2000. So it really was interesting to me, like, oh, wow, like I wonder if my sister's going to have an indigo child. And what they were talking about is the color indigo is associated with the third eye and the chakras alignment. And what they talk about is that over generations, you kind of move through different colors through the chakras. And that kind of represents that genre of, or that generation of people. So like 100 years ago, it was more like the orange people. And this was like the Industrial Revolution. It was a different kind of vibe. So what they were talking about was the earliest stages of these indigo children are the kids are coming in, they're already pre-programmed with what they're supposed to be doing in their lives. And they have higher psychic abilities. And they hit a point of critical mass in 2000, in the beginning of the new millennium. So I bought a book just to read about it, and I was for my sister. And before I sent it to my sister, I started reading through it. And as I was reading, because I grew up remember I was talking about how I was diagnosed with ADD when I was like 8. So I really grew up with the foundation that I had a learning disability. That was kind of the imprint that I had growing up, and all through college and all through school. And as I started reading this book, I was saying to myself, wow, this sounds like me, but it can't be me. Like I'm too old to be an indigo child. So I started reading diligently through the book, and they did all this research on like the early indigo children were coming in really as early as like the late 60s. They were doing research at Stanford Medical School on this. But really the culmination of the wave was all coming in 2000 in the late 90s. And that really changed my life, because instead of me having a learning disability, I really connected into that I have a gift and that I'm an early indigo. And I felt as if I've been I'm a teacher for all these kids. And all of this work that I've been doing since 2000 using bioenergetic techniques and technologies, I've always been on the record saying that this technology is for the kids, because they're not aligned. They're of a higher vibrational resonance. And 3-dimensional supplements and food and pharmaceuticals is not really how these kids are vibing. So they're vibrating with more vibrational sound light frequency and vibrational techniques and technologies. In 2000, I started introducing this. And so it's really crazy because now it's 2020. My nephew that was born in 2000 is 20 and a sophomore in college. And I'm interacting a lot with these 20-somethings or, late teenagers, and they're adults now. And it still holds true. And they're all very much into my tech. In fact, a lot of them are my fans, listening to my music and really dropping in deep with my technology.
That's interesting, man, because I've been pleasantly surprised that a lot of the listenership of this show seem to be of that generation. I mean, I'm sure there's people close to my age. And I guess when you're almost 50, like I am, I'll be 50 next month, everyone seems young, and I think everyone's 20. Mm-hmm. And they're like, dude, I'm 32. Like this kid, Dylan, like I think he's 20. And he's like, how old are you, bro? He's 27. Yeah, perfect. Like he's 20 to me,
Yeah,
because I'm an old fart now. But it's interesting, specifically with the technology. I remember when I first started reporting on, the amp coil and the biocharger and doing biofeedback out at Peak Brain LA and the human charger that shoots the blue light in your ears, the red light therapy on the Juve, all of these technology-based things that use sound, frequency, vibration, light, etc. I notice it's a lot of the younger people that are turned on by that. Like I always get these young people on my Instagram, like, what is that thing? That's so dope. Yeah. And I'm like, really? You guys are interested in this? Because when I got into it, it was the
baby
Rife
boomers.
machines. Yeah, it was like the baby boomers that had been failed by the medical system. And so they got into Rife and Biofeedback and all these big clunky machines that I don't even remember the names of them that used to be around. I'm sure you do. But it was all older, kind of new age alternative healing people,
Yeah.
and they all had like real ugly, old, crappy websites that didn't work, and they were very obscure. And
Totally.
there was like one person in each town that maybe had one, and things were very inaccessible. And now, I guess thanks to people like us that are kind of in the middle age wise, we're discovering some of those older technologies, updating them, popularizing them, and then indeed, the younger generations are eating it up and really digging it. And they seem to be tapped in. And even on that note, it's funny because I never thought about this until you mentioned the indigo children thing, but I'm also pleasantly surprised and fascinated that so many young people are also into meditation and plant medicines.
Yeah.
The plant medicine world to me was just completely off limits for a long time. And then a couple of years ago, I started delving into it a bit, and it's been amazing. And there's really young people that are like sitting in ceremony all the time.
Totally.
And have been, and they're like, where you been, dude? Old timer,
But that's what this is all about with the indigo children. That's what the indigo children are about. These are old souls being reincarnated for this time in our planetary history. They've done this before. And that's why I'm super inspired right now. In fact, during my writing my audiobook and talking with my publisher yesterday, we were finishing, and I'm doing a whole book re-release. I'm just like updating my bio and some of the website links and stuff like that. And I was talking to my publisher yesterday, and his book came out in 2014. I wrote it in 2014. It came out in 2015. And my publisher said, he goes, your book was a futuristic book in 2015. And he goes, it's so timely right now. And I feel that. And so everything that I've been ahead of the wave on is now being it's being popularized, and it's not even being popularized, it's being necessitized because of the pandemic and because of what's happening with this new earth shift. And all these, like you talked about, like all the biofeedback machines and all like the Rife machines and all these things that were, the crazy healer that was in the shadows somewhere in the back, that you'd go see. Now these are like, well, what about Hulda Clark? What about Royal Rife? These guys are pioneers from 100, well, not Royal Rife from 100 years ago, but Hulda Clark. I mean, I read all of her books, all the Cure for All Diseases books, the Cure for Advanced AIDS books. I mean, dude, she was shut down in Tijuana multiple times because of her information. I think she's passed, right? I don't think she is alive anymore.
I believe so. Yeah. Otherwise, I would.
She's probably making more money now than ever before. You would have had her on your podcast.
I would have. Yeah. I'm like, is she alive? I would have tracked her down by now. So at what point in the chiropractic journey did you start getting into these type of alternative healing technologies, and what were some of the first ones that you found? If you remember, like I said, some of their names escape me. I just remember the Rife machines where you would hold the photon gas, chambers in your hands, and all kinds of different biofeedback. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I kind of forget what they were called, but do you remember what some of the first things to emerge in that world were? Yeah.
Well, so there's a couple different things. They talk about the single channel point testing devices where you'd go in and check different, what they call Vol points, acupuncture by Vol points. And there was like 400 points all over the body, and you would check, and it would have the little gauge, and you put put vitamins up on, and then they would sell you, here's your $400 of vitamins that you need like per every month,
That's how I was tested to see if I was going to be biocompatible for a titanium tooth implant.
Oh, perfect.
And I tested, and eventually he found a sensitivity, and so I went with the, what's it called, zirconia, like the fake diamond.
Okay, yeah.
I went with one of those because he was testing me for a while, and then finally the titanium was like, there was a indicator that it would have had some sort of allergic reaction. And thank God I don't have metal in my head. That would have been a bad idea for a number of reasons, namely being an EMF antenna inside your jaw.
Totally.
Not to freak anyone out that has those, but if you have a choice. Anyway,
that's another conversation. Let's not go down the amalgam conversation.
But I remember that it's like a little probe, and they put it on your different acupuncture points and then determine whether this supplement, and like you said, you would leave with $400 or $500 worth of supplements. It's funny when there's a diagnostic device that tells you, so here's how much you got to spend, But,
exactly, but it's not the doctor, it's the machine.
Yeah.
My first machine was a Radionics device.
Wow.
Yeah, it was called the Biophoton Analyzer. And I still have it. To this day. I don't use it. Anybody that's listening to this, I'm sure we're going to get all kinds of calls about, oh my God, you have a biophoton analyzer? It's magic. And I always said I was using it for 1% of what its full capability was. I was introduced, my first, mentor, when I went to that training in San Diego, it was called Jaffe Mahler technique. And my first doctor that I was working with in Colorado, her name was Cynthia Cortini, who was a chiropractor, kinesiologist, packed waiting room of people with chronic degenerative conditions and allergies and all kinds of stuff, and they were all getting better. And I told you, my mother was diagnosed with autoimmune disease. So that was my first job in Colorado. I graduated chiropractic school in like December 98. I was in Colorado in 99. So within my first year, I was already moving out in Colorado. And then I went to this first training in 2000. And so just within my first year, I was already getting into bioenergetic work. And I remember sitting in Dr. Jaffe's and Mahler's training in San Diego, not knowing anything about muscle testing. I went day early to learn how to do it. And I didn't know anything about it. It was not in my wheelhouse. But the information that they were giving, I just remember hearing one word in my mind all weekend. It was truth. Truth. And I was taking copious notes, and I went back on Monday and I asked my patients, hey, I just learned this technique. Can I try this? And they said yes. And we started seeing miraculous changes. And the way that Jaffe Mahler technique worked was we had these little glass vials that had water in them. And in the water was contained vibrational imprinted signature frequency of X, of things, different things. And you would buy their kits, and then you would put them in your field and muscle test and reprogram the body. And we talked about boosting, identify, target, and destroying the immune system, programming the immune system to identify, target, and destroy infectious agents like bacteria, viruses, parasites, mold, fungus, and yeast bioenergetically. In 2000, this was my first thing. And I just remember hearing truth on this whole thing. And it worked really well. And I met this woman, Dawn Nolan, who became a mentor of mine. And I ended up buying her clinic in Denver, actually, because she moved to Australia to open up some other holistic allergy centers. And she introduced me to this Radionics device. And it gave us she was also certified in something called Nambutropod's allergy elimination technique, NAET. I went and...
Oh, yeah, I used to do that. I forgot about that.
Dude, Dr. Devi is a major foundation. I mean, I'm not sure what she's doing now, but she's based out of Anaheim. And I remember coming to Anaheim and sitting in her training and learning about, once again, how to treat allergies. And her work is fantastic for primary allergies. And there's two kinds of allergies. You have primary allergies and secondary allergies. Primary allergies is, because what's the definition of an allergy? It's a glitch in the nervous system, or like a glitch in your neurocomputer. And so how did your body become, and then there's different ways of having a glitch. Overexposure is one of them. Some kind of emotional trauma is another one. There's a variety of different, there can be chemical exposure, a lot of different things that could cause these neurological glitches. And I remember learning that from Dr. Devi. And her technique worked fantastic for primary allergies. I mean, it was magical. I'm allergic to peanut. You put peanut in the hand, you do this treatment, and they leave and they can eat peanuts, and Dr. Schwartz is magic. I was like, dude, this technique is amazing. But for endogenous allergies or secondary allergies, meaning that the allergy is the symptom due to a bigger, higher issue of inflammation, or an endogenous allergy, what if you're allergic to your own stomach acid? What if you're allergic to your own enzymes? What if you're allergic to your own fecal material? Something like that, which is really common. How do you do a 24-hour avoidance process? Which you can't. So they didn't hold that well with Dr. Devi's work. So we started using this Radionics device. And they had these imprinting wells, and you could do an antidote neutralize setting, take the little vial, put it in the well, lay on the mat for 2 minutes, neutralize it in your body, and they're gone. No 24-hour avoidance. And it worked pretty much every time. And I had a whole practice dedicated to that, really right out of the gate in 2000.
So radionics is where you're working in the quantum and you're essentially remotely sending frequencies or something like this?
So radionics kind of originated out in like Austria, Germany. I'm not sure exactly in the early, I want to say probably in the 50s or 60s, maybe 70s. They have huge hospitals of radionics, but essentially the principles behind radionics is that there's like this wave of imbalance. And then the radionics feeds back the opposite balancing wave back into your field. So it's counteracting an imbalanced wave with another balancing wave.
And it's non-local, right? I mean, it's not like the machine or wave is touching you. It can be done completely remotely, right?
They would have these, used to work with, you could have these imprinting trays. So you would take like a Polaroid picture and they'd have a Polaroid picture well. You could take a picture of a person, a place or a thing, whatever, put it in the well. And then you could totally create in these wells whatever healing remedies you want and broadcast it 24/7 or whatever you want remotely anywhere. Probably, they could say in the world, but probably anywhere in the galaxy, you know, if you really wanted to put the picture in there and do whatever you want. So talk about those wizards that were kind of like in the backgrounds. I mean, people would be doing all kinds of things.
Dude, I love this stuff. I just interviewed a couple guys yesterday from an organization called FLFE or Focus Life Force Energy. And they have some sort of cosmic wizard device, or a few of them in different locations that are some kind of Tesla-ish technology. And they have figured out a way to, I guess it's maybe a form of radionics. They didn't use that term, but you can program an address or a unique identifier, such as a building's address or just the GPS location or even your cell phone number, a photo of your necklace, a pendant, and then they send a harmonic frequency to that address from the device, and they can actually raise the level of consciousness of a location. So I have it on this house, and I have it on my cell phone. I put it on my mom's house.
What's it called?
It's called FLFE.net, Focus Life Force Energy. I'll send you a link. They're super cool guys, but what's dope about what they do is their whole model is based on the David Hawkins scale of consciousness.
Power versus force.
Yeah, so using kinesiology or muscle testing, they test the viability of all of their protocols. And so inherently they're integrous and truth-telling, presumably, because they're using a model based on the will of God. You know, it's just a very deeply spiritual approach to life. David Hawkins was, but it kind of merged science and spirituality. But what drew me to their work, and for those that are listening here today, I don't know if that episode will come out before or after this because I don't always release them in the same order, but it will have already been released or will be coming after this one. Either way, FLFE. The reason I was attracted to them is because one of the features of their technology is EMF mitigation. And so what they do is they program the field in a location. It's really trippy, so that not only any EMFs that are generated within the house, say like a Wi-Fi router that's plugged in, but also EMFs that are coming into the house. There's kind of a bubble of this consciousness field around that then transmutes the signals coming into the property and the ones that are generated from within, and causes them to be harmonious with your biology. And to anyone that's very left-brained and scientific, that would make no sense. But if you understand the nature of consciousness and that all energy either lowers or raises one's consciousness in a field, right? So it's a quantum technology. But anyway, I digress. It's just something I'm very excited about at the moment. But it seems to work on that principle of radionics. I'm going to reach out to them and say, do you guys ever use that term, or is that something that's congruent? Because when I first heard about the radionics, what struck me about it was that it's non-local.
Yeah.
And the way David Hawkins used kinesiology, and really his big breakthrough, was, of course, that he discovered it's not a local phenomenon. You don't have to have the vitamin B in your hand and muscle test. You could ask the question, is vitamin B appropriate for Stephen right now to support his health? And you'd get a yes or a no whether or not you're in the room or on the other side of the planet or whatever.
Exactly. And I think, to validate that point, think about the most obvious example of that is just think about your mother or your new fiance. Honey, I was just thinking about you. Exactly. And she sends you a text non-locally. Or, I don't know. Where's your mother?
In Sonoma County, Northern California.
Okay, so Northern California. I mean, there's whatever, I don't know, hundreds of miles between you and there. My mother's in New Jersey. I feel her. There's people across the globe where they can just, because there's that connection. In Hawaiian Huna, they call that the Aka connection, or that stream of consciousness between multiple people. And so that's what's so great about right now is there's all this revolution of applied sciences from these concepts of consciousness that have been really discussed for centuries. And I think that's also another interesting point about this cycle that we're in right now, because we went through this phase of where all this began with the indigenous people of this planet that were quote unquote uneducated. But what would they do? They would, according to modern,
it's so crazy.
But they might not, because they never have studied science, but they look around at nature. What would they do is they would study the laws of nature and the rhythms of nature. And they would, what's that plant do? And what does that star align with on a regular basis? And all these things. And we watched this, but they couldn't explain it scientifically. And so we went through this whole motion, this whole cycle of the indigenous uneducated, right, into modern science and the belief of the church that was like, okay, this is modern man versus getting away from, the tribes of Africa and the Mayans and just all the older civilizations, correct? And then we started getting into studying, start to research into the laws of nature, right? And that's where all this early research started coming from. We started explaining gravity and like Sir Isaac Newton, the apple falling on his head, and all these things. And it took us through this process. And what we're finding is, as we're coming out the other side of that now, because things got really crazy, then everything became, peer-reviewed journals and pharmaceuticals and lobbying, and it's gotten all crazy.
Yeah.
And what we're finding is, on the back end of this cycle, it's bringing us back to one commonality: the laws of nature. And what did the original indigenous cultures of this planet do? And so it's taking us back to exactly the same place, except what's so cool is this next wave is now we have technology that can validate the quantum laws of nature that the early indigenous societies couldn't do centuries ago. And that's what's exciting right now. And that's where I think all these indigo children and everybody that's dialed in with the plant medicines, they were all performing ceremonies and were the scientists and the scholars of centuries ago are now coming back like, cool, now we have all these cool tools that we can use.
Right.
This is what we've been saying, like, give us another chance,
Right.
And that's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to be a part of this new evolution that's happening on our planet right now as we move into this new earth.
After the Radionics machine that you were using, but do you still ever use that for anything, by the way?
It's so interesting. When I moved out of my place in Venice, I moved for 3 months during the lockdown into a friend of mine's out in Marietta, who's with my friend Tsunami Diamond. I'll give him a plug. Another amazing consciousness technology designer. And he helped me move. And I was like, listen, I can't throw this out. I've had this since like 2000. And he set it up in his room. And we've been because he's created his own Radionics machine. So we're integrating it. I'd like to actually bring it back to my place now in Marina del Rey. And we can do a lot of amazing things, especially this day and age, like what's happening where we're trying to raise the vibration of the planet. We could be putting in programs and working 24 hours a day and running programs to help create a new dimensional reality for consciousness, for humanity right now. And actually, this podcast is inspiring me to do that as soon as we're finished.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, let me know. I'd love to see it.
In fact, I'll have you come over. You can help me do it.
Yeah, it'd be fun to experiment with that a bit, because it's something I have not, personally been involved with. So, was there anything else noteworthy along the journey to what you're doing now with the V.I.B.E Bed? Were there any other pivotal devices or technologies that were kind of stepping stones along the way that led you to what you're doing now?
The Radionics machine came in immediately. But I think more interesting enough, it was the first technique was working with these vials. And I was like, what's up with the vials? So you had to buy the vials, these like glass tubes. And I remember I'd go and see my patients. I'd put the glass tubes in their field. They'd come back next time. Like, oh, Dr. Schwartz, I'm like 85% better. You're like, what's going on? And it really drove me to look into, I know that I'm not some kind of sage. I'm not some kind of, special gifted healer. I'm just a man. But this technology, there's science behind this, and it drove me deep into that. So what we started seeing was, first we started with the vials. Then I learned another technique called neuromodulation technique, Dr. Les Feinberg's work. He said, we don't need the vials. So he started creating something called therapeutic intentional scripts, where he had these like words that you would read out, and instead of putting vials in your body, in your field, you would just say it. And it was great, but it was kind of hard to do because like 80% of it per patient was the same thing. And then you would kind of take them down this road of, and then people would be like, what are you saying? And you'd just be saying it quickly to yourself. And it was a little weird, but very effective. And it was very kind of draining on me just as a practitioner. So one day I said to myself, I know, because I told you about Dawn Nolan, she showed me how I could make my own vials. So then I said, my own little energy water tubes. So then I said, what if I just took the therapeutic intentional scripts and converted them into vials? So I did that. And then his technique worked even better, because instead of me being tired and having to be super present, everything was programmed, and I was just flipping vials in and out of people's and just reprogramming my client's energy field, and it worked actually better. But I was still using this Radionics device, and I remember when Dawn moved to Australia, they had because it wasn't an FDA cleared device, she had investors and stuff, and they're like, we don't want to use this device because we're scaling. And that triggered something in my mind, because I knew what the Radionics device was doing. This was a pivotal moment. I knew what the biofeedback, what that Radionics device was doing. So I said, what if I just make a vial to do what the Radionics machine is doing? So I took that machine and took the programming and imprinted it into a vial. And I never needed the biofeedback. I never needed the Radionics machine ever again.
Wow.
And it changed my life from that moment forward. Then I put the machine away, and then I went into working with these. Then at that point, I felt, I don't like using the word, I felt like I had mastery of this technology because it was proven over. And by this time, this was like 2006. So this was 6 years in clinical practice, seeing patients day in and day out. Really, this was the heyday of my practice of just working with all kinds of chronic degenerative conditions, using techniques and technologies. And so then I was actually having these ideas about, how do I get away from these vials? Because at this point, I probably had about 1,000 vials that I had made, almost all of them myself. And so it was the Dr. Schwartz like bioenergetic library. But then I wanted to bring in associates and train associates and I was about to open up a large center, and I said to myself, I need another delivery system other than these vials, because we can't share box, and I don't have really the bandwidth to recreate 1,000 vials. A lot of them I don't even remember what specifically is I programmed in there. So what else can I do? And I had an activation, just kind of a download that, what about music? Like, what if I use sound? And one of my longtime friends, colleagues who I had done healing work with, who was a professional musician, I called him and I said, do you have any health issues? And he said he just started dating this girl that has 3 cats, and he's deathly allergic to cats. And he really likes her, but it's just a mess. Like he's all swollen and it's a mess. So I had a clinic called the Allergy Stop, and we would treat, it was a holistic allergy center. And we treated cat allergies routinely with fantastic results. I took that box of cat allergy vials that I had, went to his house, into his home studio in his basement. First time ever working with Ableton software, which is a music production software, and took these vials and converted them into audio files, which ironically look like these little cells that look just like my vials, except they're music files. So we just did an experiment. I said, what if we just did, and over the next week, I recreated my allergy protocol in Ableton and then treated him for his very severe cat allergy in his recording studio. And that was in 2007. And I'm happy to report that he's married to that woman. They live with the cat. They have a baby, and he has no cat allergies.
What? And you did that once you programmed those frequencies into the sound and made music out of it, and he listened to it.
That was the beginning of my music company, Bioharmonic Technologies. And another thing came out of that. I also started developing biofeedback systems. Two things happened in 2007. I said, okay, instead of me being the practitioner and using the vials and muscle testing, how can I start creating technologies for humanity? How can I start bringing things that I can train other practitioners with, other doctors with? How can I start making sonic pseuticals for my patients, for them to be taking as a supplement? Because what never really resonated right with me was, if I'm using bioenergetic work and they're having these profound changes, why would I give somebody a physical supplement? Like if we're making these profound changes bioenergetically, I should be able to give bioenergetic supplementation as well too. And that's always been something. So it's interesting watching the evolution of bioenergetic supplementation really come more into the forefront. And these are things like homeopathy that's been around since the 1800s. I mean, so energetic supplementation is nothing new, but now it's becoming a lot more popularized.
What was up with the biofeedback device that you had or created or whatever?
So we talked about the first ever biofeedback. So two things came out of that cat allergy experiment. First, Kruse Lawhead, him and myself, we went in and we recorded 2 albums together. The first one, Energy Clearing, which I think is the first album that you said you've been playing, and it clears negative energy out of your nervous system, space, and dwelling. And then I said to myself, what if I made a biofeedback system that that instead of using these vials, we can just make audio files, and instead of using whatever, as you need an output with biofeedback. The definition of biofeedback is giving back to your body. So you have to read your body on some way, and then your body is going to give you information, and then you deliver it back through a delivery system of some form. A lot of times the delivery systems, like when we talked about with the Vol points, the delivery system would be, here's your supplements. We're going to imprint something, or with, or you could use lasers or different, or these galvanic skin response, like wrist cuffs, microcurrent, things like that. So with this biofeedback device that we were working with, that I was developing, I was using headphones, and it would deliver back some kind of music feedback. And I actually went as far as developing a prototype for it. So I make a joke. There's a really, what's sweeping the world right now is the Healy, which is a miniaturized wearable biofeedback system that you can use an app on your phone. And I've been making the comment that I actually developed the Healy before the Healy in 2007 when I developed this first biofeedback system, because I actually went out and I bought a tablet, which before tablets even existed, all they had were those little notebooks, like the miniaturized ones with the lids. But I bought this little tablet that had like the split keyboard and a little stylus. It was running Windows 98. It was like $1,800. I remember buying it at Best Buy. And then I went forth to find a programmer, some guy that could make me this navigation system. And then we were just going to take these audio files and put them into the navigation system. And then I would I was kind of doing this hybrid of muscle testing and then delivering the frequencies through headphones. And I traveled to Peru with that. I traveled all around the world with this little baby because, 2007, there was no such thing as an app. There was no such thing as a tablet. And I worked with this, and I still have it to this day. I plugged it in. Doesn't work. But that was the precursor to what is now, and I wasn't associated with that, but I know Marcus Schemke, he's the developer of the Healy. When I listened to his stories, he was developing this in 2007.
Oh, wow.
So he's over in Germany, I'm here in the United States, and it's all about the morphic fields. It's all coming in, and people are pulling it in and taking action on it. And so I ended up getting involved with, so that was kind of something that I was playing with for a couple years. In 2009, my large center that I created closed. I had some personnel issues and some partner issues, and I ended up starting over again at that point. But what happened, that was the transition from, you asked, the original question was going from being like a chiropractor. I feel like I'm still a chiropractor. So I've never really transitioned out of being that. But the transition that happened in 2009 was when I went from being a one-on-one practitioner to being a technology designer. And we purchased a biofeedback machine that was $45,000 called the LZ30, the LZR7 laser allergy relief system. And within 6 months or 8 months, there was a falling out between the developer and the owner of the company, and it was obsolete. And the owner came to me and said, "Would you help us develop something new?" And I agreed to, and we consulted on the development of something called what turned out to become the ASA Balance, which is another body balancing system, which I became the national trainer for that, the top sales guy for that, well, the sales guy for that. And I wrote all the protocols, wrote all the manuals, and started training doctors on biofeedback. So the journey is from these vials to biofeedback to and music and frequency to working with doctors to now the next step is how can we empower the patients, the self-care revolution? And that's really, I feel, the next evolutionary step that we've been working with. And that's what I like these products like the Healys, because it's taken the biofeedback out of the hands of the practitioners, which is very important because there's a lot that I'm teaching my upline and downline about the effects of biofeedback and frequencies on the body and using drainage remedies and minerals and probiotics, which I think are essentially vitally important if you're going to be receiving these kinds of protocols. But the other end of that spectrum is the patient taking responsibility for their own health, and we want to be able to provide technologies that can empower them to unleash their highest optimal potential.
So funny, dude. When you walked in, I had this list of things. It's kind of like my security blanket, yeah. my little list. I keep kind of hidden under my leg here.
I said, if we're going to go over that list, we're going to be here for 5 hours.
Well, it's funny because sometimes, I know you a little bit. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, it's nice when you have hung out. We've hung out a few times. Mm-hmm. And so it's, it makes it easier. It's less stress. But you never know how good of a talker someone's going to be until you sit down with a microphone. Some people are motor mouths, but then when there's a camera and a mic on, then I really need my list because I'm like, oh shit, man, I got to keep the energy up here. But I feel like I don't even need this now.
Am I doing good?
No, it's amazing. Yeah,
okay,
no, it's absolutely spot on. It's everything I wanted to cover actually in a much better way than I knew we could. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a perfect segue into where you are now and what really piqued my interest when we were introduced, and that is this V.I.B.E Bed that you've created. And I see this thing as not only really cool in its current incarnation, but with things like the Rasha and the Healy and, New Calm, which is another neuroacoustic software that I'm obsessed with. I do it just about every day. Mm-hmm. There are so many different applications. in terms of the delivery system. And so let's kind of move into how that came to be, and tell me what the acronym V.I.B.E stands for, and kind of unpack the whole full body entrainment. Because I know about binaural beats and the next generation of that, the new Calm software, where you listen to something and it entrains your brain and causes you to have a positive emotional response or puts you in theta, etc. But since your body is made of water, and water, in my opinion, is a crystalline energy conductor, maybe that's not even my opinion, it's probably what it is.
Yeah, it's not your opinion.
Then why would you just put frequencies in your ears when you can put them through your entire body of water? Because you're basically like a water bed that rolls around with bones in it. So break this down for us, because it's really cool. And that's going to be fascinating for Dylan, because he had no idea. when I laid him on that thing, he's like, okay, dude, whatever. He trusts me, kind of. But it was, as I said, it was so fun watching him and, as a virgin, knowing nothing and just seeing his nervous system go.
Exactly.
And just wind down, like when they pull the power out of R2-D2, and he just goes, no.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Except instead of putting the power, unplugging, you were just recharging.
Yeah, yeah.
And reactivating.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's almost the opposite. So this is like Neo in the Matrix. Like these beds are plugins into an expression. I call these the V.I.B.E, the acronym for the V.I.B E, because everything's the vibes now. Good vibes, bad vibes, whatever's going on. But vibes actually stands for something. Here, repeat after me. Vibrational. Individualized. Body. Enhancement. System. Vibes.
Okay.
Vibrational, individualized body enhancement systems. And this whole thing came about, you talked just in that short, succinct little segment that you just gave, you touched on so many important things. First of all, yes, we are water. It's the first chapter that I talk about in my book. Because when we look at those vials, like, what is the vial? It's a tube of water. And what does water have? It has a vibrational signature in it. And when I remember, I was driving home and I was kind of had my mind blown, like, how are my patients responding to me putting a vial into their energy field? Like, how is that? But I became obsessed about the science behind that. And I started studying cellular biology and about fluid dynamics and these kind of things like that. And so what we're seeing is that we are water. We're 70 to 90% water. And in fact, even when senior citizens, like when you die of natural causes of old age, that range is, they say that the normal body hydration of like seniors that die of old age of natural causes, so to speak, is about 50%. Which is really fascinating. That means between 90 and 50%, where you are when you're born to when you die, is about a 40% range. That's how sensitive our bodies are to the amount of water in our bodies. And one of my favorite books that I would, this is a great cure for insomnia. If anybody really has a problem sleeping, go get the book, Scientific Basis of Energy Medicine. It's a little bit of a joke. It's super scientific. It's an amazing reference guide written by Dr. James Oshman, and he talked about the difference between cellular physiology. Cellular physiology, when you have a 10% reduction in water, reduces by 1 million times. So just this answers a lot of questions, like people that are having chronic, and even with COVID that's going on right now, a lot of people are dehydrated. So if you're at 90%, when you're a baby, you're at 90%, maybe even higher water, you're mostly water. But now as you get older, you're 80, 70, 60, and then 50%, you're reducing your cellular communication by 1 million times potentially 3 or 4 times. So what we're seeing is that there's actually nothing changing in your environment. It's your body's ability to interpret the environment appropriately, and your immune system is glitching out. So where does it start? Repeat after me. Hydrate.
Vibrate.
And gyrate. Hydrate, vibrate, gyrate. Vitally important. We need to keep our cells gyrating and moving, keeping our immune system activated at a highest level. These are the principles behind the V.I.B.E system. Another one I'm sure a lot of your listeners are going to be familiar with is the concept of cymatics. Cymits.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Because I wanted to ask what the correlation was, and I forgot about that. So explain cymatics for those that haven't seen those fantastic videos on YouTube and whatnot.
So cymatics basically makes a visual representation of water or any kind of movable medium. They're basically putting sound or frequency into some kind of medium, and you can start creating all these sacred geometrical shapes. It's fascinating.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it's not, and it's real. It's real.
You can't believe it's real. Yeah. Like for those, we'll put some links in the show notes to some of the videos, but they'll take like a plate and it's on top of a subwoofer and it has a certain frequency, and then there's some sand or something on it, right?
Yep.
And then it starts to vibrate, and all of a sudden you have what looks like a snowflake or some of the it's madness. It's like that's the stuff that makes it impossible, in my opinion, to think that there is no designer behind creation.
Or that creation is sacred geometry.
Right.
Like that's the answer. Like when you go to, we go to a lot of festivals and we go to Burning Man and, but then if I'm a doctor and I'm really committed to doing research and getting these into healthcare facilities and research facilities, and like it's really a passion of mine. But we go, the low hanging fruit. I mean, the people that buy into this stuff is all, festivals and things like that. And everybody's wearing sacred geometry and they got their shirts on and their necklaces and they're like, oh, a bunch of hippies. But no. Actually, not at all. It's that geometry is in alignment. The same mathematics is in alignment with our connective tissue, which is vibrating. And just to touch on connective tissue for your audience, I know you like having a lot of scientists on here that giving information. This is another foundation to why I'm making these V.I.B.E systems. Is your connective tissue, the living connective tissue matrix surrounds every tissue system and cell of the body. It's the true nervous system. When we think about, you talked about brain entrainment. Why would you just put binaural beats into the ears when you can be putting it into your whole body? The brain is just one part of the nervous system.
Oh, yeah.
The brain, there's also the spinal cord. Then you have the cranial nerves. Then you have your peripheral nerves. Then you have the autonomic nervous system, which is for fight or flight. You have fight or flight, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. You have the enteric nervous system, which have more nerves in your body. That's in the gut. That's where you have that gut response going on. All those parts are all part of the nervous system. Then you have the neuroendocrine system. So that collective body of work, that is the whole nervous system. And the feedback into that is your living connective tissue matrix, which is made up of three biological materials: microfilaments, microtubules, and intermediate tubules. Those three components. And they have one biological function. They respond to your environment through vibrational resonance.
Oh, wow.
That's what they do.
Is this why when you put on James Brown really loud, you can't sit still?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the music. Like, I'm not a dancer, but if you put on James Brown, like my body starts doing stuff. That's my thing.
I knew that I would. But think about even the words. I feel good. I mean, dude, what a great song. And they have, and it's got, it's
I was
upbeat.
thinking of Sex Machine, but
I'm a Sex Machine. That's another good one.
But no, I'm making a joke to the point that, I mean, I'm a musician and, even when you play an instrument, I mean, to keep rhythm and keep a beat, your body starts moving when that string vibrates. Or if you're a drummer and you start hitting your drum, like you never see a drummer just like, except Charlie Watts, just sitting there, totally stationary with just their arms moving, right? There's like something about the vibration of sound that reacts to your body and causes you to gyrate and move about in various ways.
Exactly. Or let's take the opposite. You ever listen to somebody that doesn't know how to sing? Somebody that your guitar is out of key or out of pitch or out of tune, or somebody that is playing and they're not in tune with whatever the band situation is. How does that feel?
Yeah.
You kind of it kind of hurts a little bit.
You contract.
Instead of being at a festival where everybody's like open and dancing and singing and harmonic. these are massive tools for essentially, that's why they talk about transformational festivals, because that's what's happening there. Is there's a lot of workshops going on about expanded consciousness. They have conscious DJs and musicians talking about conscious things. And then you have this collective energy all around one collective unifying message. And that's why people go to these events and have life-changing experiences. And so these are the foundational pieces. And now, and I talk about this in my book in detail, because after this came in during my research for my book Primal Resonance, I said, well, what biological materials are initiated by this? And I looked into I said, well, what are the initiating biological programs or pathways of human physiology? Well, let's see. How about what's important? How about how our cells replicate? Like we are, because from once the sperm fertilizes the egg, we go from 1 cell to 2 cells to 4 cells to 8 cells and we're 100 trillion cells. And not just that, but then our cells are turning over. Our skin we're like getting a new skin. I think like, I'm going to botch these numbers. I'm sorry. So I'm not even going to go there, but I think you get like a new liver every 6 months or something, or maybe, all right, we're not going to go there. But basically, there's constant cellular turnover for all of our organs. And so now, why do we age if we're having constant cellular turnover? Or why is it that at one age, somebody is healthy and at another age, they have cancer? And they do say that over a 7-year span that you have a completely new body. And how's that originate? Through a process known as mitosis. And the definition of mitosis is how our cells replicate. And then I was talking about, well, what else is another biological important program? How about signal transduction? How our cells communicate. And they receive information through your environment, external and internal environment, from cell to cell and from our external environment. Guess what the initiating factors are the originating biological materials are that start both of those pathways.
You got me.
Microfilaments, microtubules, and intermediate tubules.
So those are the communication pathways.
Those are the communication materials that initiate how our cells replicate and communicate.
How does the fascia fit into that?
This is the fascia.
Ah, that's what the fascia is.
This is the fascia.
Because expand my understanding of the fascia. The way I look at the fascia is sort of this internal skin that surrounds your organs, muscles, etc. That is this piezoelectric communication network. It's almost like the wiring, your electric wiring that carries nerve signals and information around your body to tell the different parts of your body what to do. I mean, that's a very Flintstonian version. Is that anywhere close to how it works?
I think that's pretty, I think that's a great definition. What I've found, because like I said, my background's in sports medicine. So just as much as I'm nerding out on quantum and everything, I've nerded out a lot about the physical body that's taken me into the quantum. And really when I was in undergrad learning about sports med, learning about the body, we learned about the fascia. And the fascia by standard sports medicine definitions is a sheath or a covering around every muscle and tendon of the body, but then that expands and is interconnected into the connective tissue, which is part of the fascia. So a lot of these terms are kind of interconnected, the living connective tissue matrix, the fascia, the connective tissue, and they say the bone is a connective tissue. The ligaments are connective tissue because they connect everything together. But when we chunk it down, now there's the periosteum, which surrounds the bone, that's connected. So you can't really start separating out these levels. See? Mm-hmm. And what governs that interconnectedness between every tissue system and cell of the body is the living connective tissue matrix.
Got it.
So a lot of people talk about fascia that are body workers, and it's very three-dimensional. It's very Newtonian.
Yeah.
But that same principle is what applies in quantum. And in fact, so fascinating because when we look at modern science, When I was in school and you're learning biology and we're doing research, we would go into, taking biology, we'd be studying the blood. So we would draw blood and then we would put it in a centrifuge and we'd spin it down, and then we'd pull out the test tube and you would have the serum, and then you'd have the serum, and then you would have the connective, like the connective tissue matrix at the bottom. And we would draw off the serum and study it. And you know what we do with the other part? We throw it out. It's waste material. It's completely backwards. The activating fabric of the blood is what we were throwing out. We're looking at this completely backwards. And what's being broadcasted is that vibrational fibrinogen that's in the connective tissue. That is what activates the serum and shows us what's in there. I'm curious what kind of responses you're going to get from your community on this, but yeah, that's what's going on, and that takes us into why I'm working with this vibrational technology. In 2009, I had 2 albums out because I told you about the cat experiment that happened in 2007. I made that biofeedback system, and then I also went in and recorded my first album, Energy Clearing, which I think is the one that you've been playing through the V.I.B.E, which is a great place to start.
Yeah. And that's the one with it has like like little explosion sounds in the background here and there. Anyway, carry on. I have the playlist here.
I don't think that's where we are.
Oh no, Cell Cleanser.
A Cell Cleanser. Okay, yeah.
That's the one. That's the first Cell Cleanser track is the one I've been listening to.
Okay, yeah. That's a massive. That's a major track.
Super psychedelic, and then somewhere in the middle it has like what is that?
The throat
sound?
Singing. The throat singer?
No, there's like it sounds like a volcano erupting or a crackling, a lightning or something like that.
We did, that was a masterpiece.
Sorry to interrupt.
We did, I mean, we can go down that road, but
carry on with what you're saying. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, that's it. You can find it.
So you guys listening, I have the tablet up to my microphone right now.
It's the sound bath interlude.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. I'm sorry, carry on.
That's okay. This is your show.
You were on a good point. I'm like a child on this show. I'm like, wait, but what about the thing? No,
that's okay.
Go ahead.
I'm the same way. This is great.
So I totally forgot where you were. I got excited.
I was talking about going into in 2007. I developed between 2007 and 2009. I developed two albums, and the first one was. I'd never been in a recording studio, so proof of concept. Could we do it? Does it work? And after I successfully eliminated my friend/patient's cat allergy, I was like, okay, let's make music. And then we come up with a proof of concept. I always wanted, what albums can I play as a non-musician? Crystal bowls, chimes, tingshaws, but it was based off of sacred geometry. It was based off of the octahedron or the platonic solid for air. And I'm like, well, what do I do? How do we clear air? Like, what is air? Air's what instruments are air clearing? How do you clear? And that's how we came up with energy clearing. And I played crystal bowls and the chimes and tingshaws. And then in 2009, I was working with another biofeedback system called the Evox from Zyto, which was incredible. It used voice recognition software. And you could speak about a topic and it would show you based off your voice what energetically was out of balance based off of imbalance in your octaves.
The amp coil has that, a voice diagnostic. It's really interesting. They developed it from the lie detectors used by, I guess, law enforcement or intelligence agencies. And so you basically go through the vowels or the alphabet and then it's like liver imbalance or, it's like, what? But it works off that same principle. It's really interesting.
I worked with this technology for many years and I love it. But we started developing, I made a second album. My second album was based off this biofeedback system called Cell Cleanser. And because what we would do is we'd feed back the octaves and then just played, there's really just nothing going on. They played some music, but it was just music they got online. And I said, I can make custom music for that, for each one of the zones. So I started thinking to myself, this is more than just, like, I'm not really making music. I'm making a biofeedback system packaged into a CD. These were CDs at the time. And in 2009. And I was down in Southern Colorado and I had this download that instead of like what you said, my patients would ask me this question all the time. Do I need to listen to your music through headphones? And I said, no, it's field music. I'm wanting you to experience the music into your biofield more than just the brain. Don't just entrain the brain. I want you to entrain your whole nervous system. And then I said, instead of having this travel through the air, what if we could vibrationally, mechanically vibrate it into the connective tissue? And I started putting mathematical ratios, sacred geometry, and physiological frequencies into the music. And then we would vibrate it in. And this is where Dylan would go and have these instantaneous drop-ins. It's a process that I refer to as full body neurological entrainment or body hypnosis. And it's almost instantaneous. It takes you from a place of, instead of just entraining the brain, because hypnosis works. It works really well.
Hypnosis is dope.
Hypnosis is dope. Subconscious mind reprogramming, neurolinguistic programming. It's been a cornerstone of my practice since forever. Since 2000, I've always had some level of subconscious mind reprogramming. It's that vitally important. But instead of just entraining the brain, let's pull that out and entrain those same principles, not just into the brain, which is one component of the nervous system, but into the entire nervous system.
So your fascia and your intercellular matrix of connective tissue and all this stuff responds in the same way as your brain because it's all part of your nervous system.
Exactly.
So when your brain hears binaural beats or healing frequencies, what we're doing with the bed is we're just sending that to every area of the body, in the whole nervous system.
So we're vibrating into connective tissue.
So that rather than your brain having to kind of disseminate that data and send it through your nervous system to relax you or inform whatever you're trying to inform your nervous system.
It's not even that. It's not even that road. It's more about, here's your brain. And then your brain's like, okay, cool. I'm down with that entrainment. I get that. But because of the neurology, the term, the issues are in your tissues. Mm-hmm. So your brain, you're hypnotized. You're not going to smoke anymore. I'm no longer a smoker. Okay, I'm not going to smoke. But then you get up in the morning and you start moving around. And next thing you know, you walk by where the cigarettes are. And you do a motion that releases cellular memory to smoke. And now it has nothing to do with your mind. And not to take away the effectiveness of hypnosis, because I know I have countless numbers of patients that have gone through hypnosis and have never smoked ever again from brain entrainment. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to take away from that process at all. Mm-hmm. However, there's a lot of people that it regresses. And the reason why it regresses is because you're hypnotizing the brain, but the cellular memory has never been cleared of the patterns associated with that same condition. And that's where you can go in and release the issues from the tissues. Mm-hmm. You release that, and now it's gone.
Wow.
And that concept came to me in 2004 after having my first journey down to Peru, working with a shaman and experiencing plant medicines for the first time, going to Machu Picchu for the first time, and getting completely blown open. And I remember leaving Denver. I was living in Denver, Colorado. I was in my whatever it was, late 20s. I'd go to the bars all the time. Never thought I ever had a drinking issue, but my friends, we'd go to the bars all the time. And I remember leaving right after St. Patrick's Day, which was a big party, having this massive shamanic awakening, and then coming back for opening day for the Rockies, which is another huge party. And my friends were like, hey, let me buy you a drink. Let me tell us about Peru. We want to know all about it. Here you go. Here's your favorite drink. And I remember staring at this thing and just scanning my body and not having one shred of wanting to consume one drop of my favorite drink that I drank gallons of probably prior to going on this trip. And that began me on this process of, what is this? Cellular memory. How do we start reprogramming that in the body? How do we instead of sitting in the jungle and vomiting for, hours on end, because as I said to myself, I started thinking about my patients. Like, would my mom do this?
Yeah.
Would my patients do this? How can we package something that can be just as effective, but they don't need to get on an airplane, they don't need to go to a ketos, they don't need to, ingest these plant medicines and put, and things like that. And these are what we call shamanic, this is what I call shamanic technologies that are activating the same processes. And the V.I.B.E is one of those delivery systems.
So to explain for the people listening, and also I want to encourage you guys, we did a really great video of an unboxing of the V.I.B.E when you brought one over here, which I'm super excited about. I always feel bad for people that are just listening to the audio and they're like, what is this thing? But to give those of you that don't have the opportunity to see the video, so basically we're talking about what would look kind of like a massage table. It's about a couple feet high, wide as one person. Then there's there's two amplifiers, one larger amplifier that has the low end that goes into the transducers in the bed underneath you. Then there's a smaller amplifier that goes to the headphones so that you can mix it basically so that you can have a different volume per se in your ears as is in the bed. And then there's a tablet, which I have here for those of you watching the video, where your music is stored, which is going to be an app. Now I just have the music on this tablet. So essentially it's like, this is your iPod, you're plugging it into an amp, and then the speaker is two speakers. One is the bed itself, and then the other is the headphones. And so it's like a full body experience of listening to music.
It's virtual reality for your cells. It's like a virtual reality sound bath. Like when you're in a sound bath and you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, like this gong. Oh, these crystal balls, like I'm obsessed. Like, and you just want to like be in it. Like you just can't get in the gong anymore. You're sitting there like, oh my God, how can I like get these waves to crash over my body anymore? The V.I.B.E.
See, that's funny you say that because I love sound baths and Kundalini yoga. If you go to a good class, it's always the big treat at the end is the lie out. And if you got a good gong, and that's why, for years when I go to my teacher Tage's class, I'd always sit in the front. Me and my buddy Elliot, man, every day we'd get there early and we'd be in the front because we want to get blasted by the gong at the end. But when you go to sound baths, depending on who the practitioner is and where your particular mat spot is, sometimes you don't really get the full body and they might travel around with the instruments. You have your eyes closed and you're like, where's that rattle? And then it feels like it's close to you and you're really vibing with it because it's, it's close enough to pick up the vibrations. And then they move to the other guy across the room. And I always think, God, come back over here. Totally. You're too far. So I totally relate to that of wanting just the full immersion into the sound, which this definitely accomplishes. In terms of the tracks, is there anything going on with the pitch of the music? A lot of people talk about, 432 hertz, I think it is, rather than 440. That's somewhere along the line in Western classical music, we got duped into switching to 440, which is this, some people go so far as to say it's like a demonic kind of frequency of music, that the true natural tone of music is at 432, which is what the song Imagine by John Lennon apparently is tuned to. So most Western instruments, guitars, pianos, everyone's tuned to 440.
Yeah.
But there are people making conscious music that use different tunings. So a note of an A or an E, D, G, et cetera, is going to be a different note at 432 than it would 440. And then you have your death metal bands like Metallica, Slayer, et cetera, thrash metal. They'll tune way down, and that's that really dirgy dun, 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 dun. It has this evil, ominous sound. So there's different tunings for people listening, and they all have kind of a different feel and
different vibe.
Did you fool around with any of that?
So, okay, this is great question. Great question. It's probably the number one common question people ask. Listen, I'll be the first one to say I'm a doctor. I'm a master formulator. I'm using music for one very, very particular reason. Through my research, there's no better delivery system for connecting and influencing chemistry than using sound and frequency, and sound, light, frequency, and vibration. So that's why I use sound. My journey as a musician is ever evolving. Like I said, my first album, I was like, what instruments can I play? Because I want to play on my own album, and we played it. But what I do know how to do is formulate for the body. But I can tell you, interesting, my first two albums, actually my first 3 albums are not in 432. They're in 440. There's artifacts in them. If you listen to them, they're almost a little, embarrassing, like did my friend's home studio, 10 hours. I mean, I'm really proud of what we did, but there's some rustling of papers, there's little things in there. It's from 2007.
Yeah.
However, the magic that we created with that album, I have more healings that people report, that I've witnessed, and that people call and email me and tell me about from energy clearing and cell cleanser too. I mean, the response I get from cell cleanser, actually from all my really all my albums, I get a lot of feedback, but really my energy clearing is the oldest one from 2007. And I think what's so interesting about it is it's not in 432. It's definitely in 440. There's some artifacts wrong. It's probably not totally optimally mixed right. But all the elemental ingredients that create my sonic suticals are all represented in that album, in all of my albums. And so then I start thinking to myself, I do think 432 is a better pitch, is a better tuning than 440, for sure. For the record, I want to state that. And my second generation and albums, all my new stuff, all is in 432.
Oh wow!
In fact, because we weren't even. It was kind of before. I didn't even know anything about 432, to be honest with you. Like when we did this. I mean, this was 2007, 2009, and it's been out there, but it's been a lot more popularized in more, in the last 5 to whatever years, now. And we are in 432, but there's some other factors that I believe are more therapeutically are more the reason for therapeutics than the 432 tuning. And another one that people kind of talk about is 528. And 528 is a solfeggio frequency. So It's a frequency. It's not a tuning. Everybody says it's not a tuning. So 432 tuning, which is different than 440. 528 is a hertz frequency associated with the solfeggio range. It's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Like that's the different ranges. They talk about the same frequencies of the Gregorian chants associated with the solfeggio frequencies. Then they say that's like for DNA repair research and like that. But there's a lot of really great solfeggio frequencies that I use with my music. So there's a lot of different disciplines. And what makes my music different than anything else is I start with the intention of, what am I formulating? What are we doing? The very first question is, hey, Dr. Schwartz, I want to make an album with you. Cool. What are we doing? What's the intention? And then I go into the formulation process. And then we start, okay, I need this, that. And then I look to my library, just the same as what do I have? What are my herbs that I can formulate with? What's my music that I formulate? And we start pulling together all the different ingredients sonically, and then we obviously create music around it that I like to also be in alignment with the intention of the music as well too. And so and then the V.I.B E, getting back to the V.I.B E system, is a delivery system for clearing cellular memory. That's why I created it in the first place, for clearing cellular memory out of the body. And now we're using them for ascension devices and also delivery systems for things like the Rasha, like the Healy, and other frequency devices that we can plug into, and that you, instead of just feeling the frequencies in the quantum field, we can sonify them. Sonification of the quantum field, bring it down from the invisible into the cymatic physical realm.
Speaking of cymatics, have you ever just made a crude cymatics experiment and put a plate of black sand or rocks or something on the V.I.B E to just see if a shape happens?
So I have, of course I have. And really what happens is, so just cymatics, they're using pure tone frequencies.
Oh, okay.
And so what's so awesome is they see that shape happen based off of different tones and different octaves with a specific note.
Okay, so it's a C.
And it creates, and then you go through different octaves and it starts changing the shape. But one of my customers, Diana Williams, she actually started making paintings to my music on the V.I.B E. She would put the canvas on her vibrational technique. She owns one of my V.I.B E systems, and put paint down. And she actually created music, made it paint made paintings out of the music of my sonic-ceuticals through whatever came out of the vibration through the vibe. And as I was just moving to my new place, she gave it to me. And I flipped over the back, and it says, this painting was made by listening to the sonic-ceutical from Dr. Stephen Schwartz of abundance.
Oh, wow.
And so I have that hanging up in my house.
That's cool.
So, yeah. So you can definitely do that. But we are the cymatics.
Right.
We are water. So we lay on this bed, and then we vibrate our water. And that's what Dr. Emoto talked about, the messages in water, crystalline structures, how you can change it. What are we thinking? What are we eating? What are we drinking? What are we communicating? And then how is that vibration being delivered through the living connective tissue matrix, through the microfilaments, microtubules, intermediate tubules, and how is that delivering down into the way our cells are communicating and replicating? And then all of a sudden, I have cancer. Okay, well, why do you have cancer? Well, what chemistry have you been creating for yourself for the last decade, 2 decades, 3 decades? What have your parents been telling you? What came through in the womb? I mean, what have you been exposed to? What have you been saying? What have you been smoking? What have you been doing? I don't know. I'm super healthy and now I have cancer. Oh, really? How healthy are you? Oh, you have COVID? Tell me, and you're super healthy? Let me look at your history.
So when we're talking about cellular memory, this is interesting if we have the ability to delete that or alter it, because this is going to include all physical and emotional traumas also, right? I mean, there's a nervous system response to any negative stimuli that you've experienced before, whether that's just somebody's energy when they walk in the room, or for me, it's oftentimes a barking dog because I had experiences in the past where I got munched by huge dogs. And so that response is reprogrammable, then, is the good news, right?
Exactly. And just think about it. Most people form habits so easy, you didn't even know how you formed it.
Yeah.
Think about it. You start smoking, you're at a party, and so your friend's like, hey, do you want to smoke? Or some beautiful woman's like, hey, do you got a cigarette? You start having a conversation. Next thing you know, boom, anchor.
Yeah.
And now you're smoking.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that easy. So if your neurology can pair together information that easy, you can pair new information together just that easy. But what you have to, and this goes back to chiropractic. They say, like, what's the definition of, chiropractor? You only have to go, you have to just go 3 times a week for the rest of your life. It's always like kind of the joke around chiropractic. That's not necessarily true, but what you are doing when you take a step back from chiropractic is you're reprogramming the nervous system. And if you can remove the triggers from your nervous system, you don't need to go to the chiropractor. I think everybody needs to go to chiropractor to remove spinal interference as a wellness maintenance program for life. But if you're going for back pain, for the same back pain over and over again for life, no, that's not appropriate. Like, you're missing something. See the difference?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're working with cellular memory, how do you clear, what are the ingredients? And it comes down to something, just look at the anatomy. You have a cell, and what does a cell consist of? It's 70 to 90% water. And according to Samuel Hahnemann, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy, water holds memory. And that the memory is more powerful the more you dilute it, which is a fascinating concept.
That's wild. That's the fundamental principle of homeopathy.
That's the fundamental principle. So when you
Which is why you taste a homeopathic medicine or smell
tastes
it,
like water.
There's nothing here.
Exactly. There's nothing here.
That's weird.
Yeah, because what happens is you start with the signature. So you start off with bee venom, and that's what gives you the allergic reaction. But when you dilute it, when you're left with literally the shadow or the signature of the bee venom, now it becomes a therapeutic signature that you can utilize in your nervous system, and you can reintegrate it.
Wow.
And now I even like giving the example, and I talk about this in my book, is how many people have trauma, and the physical trauma has healed, but they're still operating energetically from, like, this can be from a relationship. Think about how many people get divorced and they're legally divorced, but they're going through the same loops with the relationships forever. You know, they're still attracting the same people, or they're afraid to commit, or whatever the situation may be, because they're running off an old program because they've been hurt before. Or my ex, took all my money, or whatever the situation is. Or you were in an auto accident, and next thing you know, you might the physical body might have healed, but you're left with the whole expression of, you're freaked out every time it's nighttime.
Right.
Right. Or something, or you get too close to a truck, your palms start to sweat, and that's homeopathy. So how do we clear that cellular memory? Well, the best way to clear it is understanding the physics behind it. And the water holds memory, and it's surrounded by a vibrational matrix called the living connective tissue matrix that responds to vibrational resonance of the environment. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we are being bombarded by information. We're being bombarded by information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week already. And it's creating habits, and it's creating addictions, and it's creating chemistry, positive or negative, depending on whatever information's coming in.
Wow.
So it's already happening.
Yeah.
So with the vibe, now we can align ourselves into a new dimensional expression. Here's the key of our choosing. We get to choose, because especially now, dude, there's vaccines. There's talk about coups that's happening after the election. Get out of California. I mean, all this crazy stuff that's going on. Breaks out in COVID. It just never ends, and that's what's and it's pushing us into contraction and fear. So now, what if you wanted to release that? Well, let's start with energy clearing. Boom, lay on the vibe, and clear it out of your nervous system. You just got in a fight with your significant other, or you had a major intense day with a business partner or something. Instead of holding on to that and kind of re-ingraining more and more of that pattern that makes it worse, lay on the vibe, listen to energy clearing. And now we start we're shifting what's in our field.
Would it work the same way if you just had it on really loud in speakers in the room and through the bed, or do the headphones play an integral part of that? Does the left and right hemisphere reaction have to be going on, or can it just be ambient in the room?
That's what I call sonic incense. Sonic incense. Mm-hmm. So you can listen to the music, and it'll fill the room, and that's great.
Oh, okay.
But then if you want to vibe it, the vibes are then being broadcasted.
What I'm saying is, you have two speakers basically.
Yeah.
You have the bed, which is kind of a subwoofer, and then you have the headphones. Rather than listening to the music or whatever you're putting through the vibe in the headphones, could you just have it ambient, really loud in the room on a couple fat speakers?
Yes.
Or does it have to be in your left and right ear, specifically like a binaural beat or something like Newcom? I mean, you don't get the effect of entrainment unless it's in the left and the right ear.
But Newcom's doing brain entrainment.
Yeah.
We're doing full body neurological entrainment.
Okay. So you could have it on speakers.
Totally.
Oh, okay.
But here's what happens. That entrainment level, it still happens, but with the headphones, it's just an amplifier. So you can use the music without anything, and you're still going to get an effect.
Okay.
Then if you drop it in on the vibe, even better. Drop it in with vibe and headphones, even better.
Got it.
It's just different levels.
So I think what's really cool about this, and I did an experiment when I first came to your house, and I actually put my Newcom tracks through it, which was really dope, because then I had kind of the low end going through my body, and then the higher end stuff going through the headphones, even though it's not designed for that. And it was super cool. And then you mentioned the Healy, and I think the music that you made is awesome too, but I think it's rad that you have the flexibility to actually just experiment with different sounds, and whatever kind of sounds you want to run through your cells, you could do that. I mean, you could essentially put on some
Anya
secular music or whatever, play some gospel or tribal or shamanic music, yoga, kundalini mantra, whatever.
We do that all the time.
That's so rad.
Yeah, it's just another, you know what?
It's like a body speaker, basically.
It's a body speaker.
Yeah.
You know what I love? I've had the fortune to connect with a lot of musicians and put them on the vibe, and it's a total blessing, but they're fascinated by me. I'm fascinated by them because I love their music. And I say to them, would you like to listen to your music through the V.I.B.E? And they're like, what?
Right.
And they're like, really? And it's really funny, some of them say no. They're like, no, I love what's happening here. But most of them say it's like, I really love, have you heard of Future Primitive? Mm-mm. He's an electronic producer. Okay. I had the very good fortune. I had the very good fortune of being able to perform, do a workshop at Allison Gray's Cosm back in 2015, and he was the headlining musician, and we became really good friends after that. We spent the whole rest of the weekend together, and then I was like, "Do you want to listen to your music?" And I have this great picture of Future Primitive, just like totally vibing out to his music that feels so good through the V.I.B.E. So these are delivery systems. Mm-hmm. And I would like to say before we kind of wrap this up was the biofeedback system, the ASA balance. We were using a laser and galvanic skin response as output. And we ended up running into some issues with FDA and stuff like that because of the laser and stuff like that. And at that moment, I said to myself, well, why are we using laser anyhow? Like, it's good. It's a good delivery system. I like what we're doing with it. But what if we used some kind of vibrational sound technology? And that was back in 2010-ish, 2011. Actually, that's probably like 2012-ish or so. And that really began me on this journey. And now the people that now own that company are friends of mine. And we're talking about potentially integrating the V.I.B.E into this biofeedback system. So I'm real excited about this and the possibilities. Like, I want to collaborate with other quantum technologies, other frequency technologies, other music technologies that are looking for a full body systemic integration. And that's what our app is going to be all about. The brand new Vibraphile app that's by the time this airs, I'm sure it'll be out, but it's in beta and we're about to be releasing it at the end of the month. It's a full platform, community platform and music platform for my music and for other Vibraphile producers that are going to want to put music on for this technology.
That's rad.
For immersive healing experiences.
Speaking of immersive experiences, and I think this a lot when I'm experiencing something I enjoy. I think, man, this would be even better with some plant medicine. But when I was on the bed today, I not only had a short version because I gave our boy here the bulk of the time available before you arrived, just because I wanted to geek out on his reaction. But I got on it earlier today, and I just thought, man, I wonder if I could. I think you showed me actually how to put some of the tracks you made on like repeat, make a playlist so it would go for 6 hours. And I thought, man, I would like to eat a grip of mushrooms and just lay on this bed and just do my journeying in my own private ceremony with an eye mask on the bed. And just, I don't like to move a lot when I do a journey like that, unless I'm out in nature or something. Have you had reports of a lot of people taking it to the next level with their various medicines of choice and using the bed and in that kind of circumstance?
We've had...
Or is that just overkill?
No. Well, so just...
I think I like overkill.
Yeah.
Generally,
and we're here in California. It's like kind of trendy for microdosing.
Yeah.
I'm more of a macrodoser personally, but I've been really blessed in this journey to pretty much every medicine we've experienced through the V.I.B.E. And I get invited to a lot of ceremonies that have been epic, and they've invited me to bring the V.I.B.E. and so people can experience their medicine through this vibrational technology. In fact, we just did a 5-MeO ceremony.
Oh my God.
Just it was amazing.
I wouldn't even think of that.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Dude, and we've done many 5-MeO ceremonies.
Oh my God.
In fact, we actually have
crazy.
We have a lot of people run do ketamine experiences through the V.I.B.E. In fact, we really want to get these into a lot of ketamine clinics because really,
good idea.
Yeah, so if you have any connections with ketamine clinics, this is the delivery system for that.
I know a couple of practitioners actually. There's a place, I think they're based in Canada, called Field Trip. that are doing some really
Oh,
great
wow.
clinical use of that medicine. And then Dr. David Rabin, who's been on the show a couple times,
Okay.
he does CAP therapy. I don't know if he does office visits now with COVID and stuff, so he does it remotely. But yeah, I'm connected to a couple people. But man, 5-MeO, I can't imagine doing toad medicine and laying back on that table. It's so hardcore.
It was so
just
good
on its own. But
So
you got
good.
me thinking now. I was
Yeah.
thinking, like something more that is a bit less jarring to your
All of it.
your existence. But that's cool to know. And
You know what? All of it. And, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, sound, light, frequency, and vibration are activating the same pathways as all the plant medicines. It's just in a
Right.
higher range. So they're literally, so you can have a DMT experience. You can have a psychedelic experience. You can have, all of these are all reported without it. And I think what's beautiful about this is a lot of people don't want to take plant medicines, but they still want to have the experience.
Yeah.
So now this creates a natural, safe alternative for those people. And then for the people that are wanting to have an experience and then go to the next level, they can do that as well too.
That's rad.
And
yeah.
it's all there. And I want people to be able to utilize this however they want.
Thank you for adding that caveat, because I always want to be a responsible podcast host, and I definitely don't think all people are meant to have those experiences. But we were talking about the Lucia light.
Yeah.
I had their rep Allison on, and that thing is a DMT experience in and of itself. And you're stone cold sober, and I'm going to get one of those damn things one of these days, and I can't wait to do the V.I.B.E and the Lucia light together. I think
We've done that many times.
that is the cream of the crop, and you literally would not need any plant medicines. Of course, I would like to do both all at the same time, just to completely lose my shit.
I'll help facilitate it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the next level. So we got hot Bel Campo burgers in the other room for us and the crew here that are probably not hot anymore, lukewarm, no pun intended. I'm sure people now are listening and they're super excited, going, "Oh my god, we're getting these V.I.B.E beds." They're not, they're not $150. I don't recall, but just give people an idea of, what the price range is for the V.I.B systems. And for those that are like, "Oh, bummer, that's prohibitive to me at this time," a way that people maybe could find a practitioner, or like Dr. Hari.
Yeah.
That's where I found your stuff at the Transformational Healing Universe on Robertson. And he's got one of the other lights, the Pandora light,
Pandora
hooked
Star.
up to it, and super tits experience. So how can people either get one, and if they're unable to do that for whatever reason, how could they track someone down and be able to experience what we've been talking about?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I used to sell biofeedback systems, they were $30,000. And
I remember that.
And
That's why I never bought one.
And my first one that I bought out of pocket was $45,000. But we started, and I used to say to my practitioners, these are profit generators. You're not buying a car. You're buying something that's going to, it's an investment. That being said, I always said when I was selling these $30,000 machines, I was like, I would like to have a product that's a lot more like in the range because this is for the self-care revolution.
Right.
And this is really like a lot of biohackers are purchasing V.I.B.E from me as well too. So when we're looking at the realm of like, what are people purchasing for spas and wellness centers, or even for their homes to put in here, like what's like a treadmill, what's a massage chair, what are these going for? I really wanted, and also what are other vibrational beds going for if you go online and really start looking at them. And I wanted to price mine, I wanted to make the highest quality vibrational product in the mean range of what these go for, which is usually about, $4,000 to $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we have two models. We have like a travel model that can fit on top of a massage table, and those are $4,000. And then we have the pro, more modern, the more like full immersive, ergonomic professional model, which is called the V.I.B.E 3.1, and that's $5,000. And we have these brand new travel bags. So we're mobile and global that
That's
just
dope.
came out, and we're actually it's probably going to be over by the time this broadcast. But we're running a special where if you buy a 3.1 this month, you'll get a free bag. So if anybody watches this and says they saw this through the podcast, we'll honor that discount for them.
Yeah, the bag's dope too, because the bed I didn't realize they were bendy.
Yeah.
But the bed folds up and fits in the bag. So, and then it's got wheels
got the
and
case,
handle.
yep.
Yeah. I mean, I don't anticipate I'm going to be moving mine around a lot, but if I did want to go, someone's having a journey or ceremony or something and I want to bring it, it's actually pretty freaking easy.
Yeah.
Considering how, substantial it is.
Exactly. So we have that. We also have light systems that range anywhere from $1,500 up to like $5,000. So and then we bundle those together. So if you go on our website, people can find these different bundle prices. We have these structured watering devices. So we really, it's hydrate, vibrate, gyrate. We feel the whole system needs to be incorporated. People can jump in at any level that they want. We have a really robust affiliate program. We actually have this like 90-day same as cash financing. We really want to make options for people to receive, to be able to get these vibes. Because we know that every vibe that exists on this planet that is raises the vibration of the planet. These are harmonic nodes to raise the vibration of the planet. And we know that right now, this is more important than anything else. So it's my personal journeys to get these all over the world. We're in 6 different countries outside the United States.
Wow.
And we have some opportunities in Australia, and we have some stuff going on in Thailand. And so these are some new places that are about to open up. Mexico as well. And especially now with the Healy integration, we're getting a lot more interest everywhere.
Yeah, dude, I get emails like every week from people. Hey, Luke, have you heard of the Healy? I think they want me to sign up.
Yeah,
for that.
of course.
Or whatever. I'm like, yeah. I think, maybe Hari told me about it first, and then we did a demo at your house through the V.I.B E, which was really cool.
It's happening. So yeah, so those are some of the easy things. And then really, in order to connect, we have a V.I.B E tribe. If you're looking for a practitioner, we want to you can contact us through our website, through our app. It's going to be all of our owners are going to be on the app. You can message them. There's going to be a free version for people that just want to be connected through the community and have have access to some of the free tracks. And then there's going to be a paid subscription for levels 2 and 3. But it's all nominal. It's not going to be. We really want to get this out to the world, and we really want to bring. This is the vibroacoustic evolution revolution. This is part of the self-care revolution for raising the vibration of the planet and harmonizing humanity. And I'm not here to just be selling product. I'm here to create delivery systems for people to evolve and to express themselves in their highest expression. And people, I say, hey, what are you going for with these V.I.B.E systems? And I say, these are the next TVs. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, why would I turn on a box that's broadcasting information of other people's stories, programming other things into my mind that's beyond my control, and in training me into things that I'm not really interested in being trained in? Instead, go lay on a V.I.B.E and choose a program for yourself that is going to activate and elevate the highest expression of yourself.
Oh my God, you just give me a great idea.
Okay.
I could play some of the long Joe Dispenza meditations that have the music kind of bed under them too. That would be super cool because I listen to those a lot. And some of them have like really great, like your didgeridoo music and that really entraining hypnotic stuff. So,
well, that's what we're looking for our app. We want to be bringing in people. Dr. Joe's a friend of mine. I haven't connected with him in a long time. It would be the highest expression of his work. I've always said that I'm doing the applied science of his work. So to take his guided meditations, his trainings, his teachings, and to sonic pseudicalize them for the V.I.B E, where then you can lay down and get a full body download of all of his teachings. And so you're not learning it through your mind. You're literally downloading it into your connective tissue.
Wow.
That's what we're looking to do in this next phase with the Vibraphile app.
Dope.
And we're looking for, partners like that want to align. So if you want to help us with that, that'd be great.
Well, next time I get him on the show, I'm going to mention it. If he gets in the studio, I'll put him on the V.I.B E. Like, dude, we got to get these in your events. Can you imagine at the Joe I mean, you'd have to have like 3,000 of them or something.
That's okay.
But yeah,
we can do that.
Oh, it'd be sick when they do the coherence healings. And you have a group of healers, maybe there's like 8 healers standing around. It's this whole thing they do in his events. And then you have the healee, the person in the middle that has some pathology or issue. each Healy could be on a V.I.B.E system while they're getting the treatment from the people.
And we can have them all interconnected together and plugged into the house sound system.
Right.
And then so then
you could entrain.
Yeah, everybody's getting entrained. And then in the crowd, through sonic incense, it's all emanating through the people and it's all being transmuted.
I wonder what types of beings would come in if you did it that way. Because at that's when the beings come into the Dispenza events, is in those healings. Because the way that he described it and others have described it is that the energy is so high that it's like a beacon to benevolent beings that travel interdimensionally and actually come into the room. And many of the Heelys experience communications visually, auditory, etc., with these beings. And I asked him about that, and I was like, "What, dude? What's up with that? This sounds crazy." He's like, "Hey, don't take it from me. Talk to the Heelys. Like, they're the ones that tell me."
Yeah.
And then their stories are corroborated. They're these 10-foot tall ones and all this stuff. Yeah. But he's not the one saying it. He's just like reporting on the Heelys. So can you imagine?
He's creating the portal.
Yeah, can you imagine like adding all of these, different modalities and technologies together? It's such an exciting world we live in. All right, our burgers to Colin. My last question for you is, who are 3 teachers or teachings that have influenced your life and work that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, wow. Great. That wasn't on the list.
Never is.
Okay.
You're lucky. I never even show anyone my list. I was just trying to kill time before we got started.
Actually, so funny. My whole introduction, I was in this movie called In Tune that was recorded on location in Tijuana when I was living in Colorado back in 2000 and what year that was. That was kind of before I came here. And I met with the interviewer. We totally connected. Everything was super sweet. And then like right before I went on, she's like, "Oh, here's all the questions I'm going to ask you." And I read through them. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is so hard." Like they weren't even like easy questions, so funny. So I had a kind of a flashback. I had cellular memory around that when you gave me the list. So the 3 people that I'm most influential, I really think James Oshman, when I read James Oshman, The Scientific Basis of Energy Medicine, that book really got me moving into the world of living with like the living connective tissue matrix. That really, those teachings in there about hydration and water, that was a major influential book for me. The first book I ever read on quantum healing that changed my life is called The Dance of the Woolly Masters.
Wow.
I don't even know. Yeah. And it's super.
Got Dylan on that one.
Yeah. I don't even know who wrote the book. It's kind of famous, but it basically walks you through a whole history of quantum physics.
Oh, wow.
And all the experiments. It's not even like this esoteric. It's kind of this scientific esoteric book. It's really interesting. I read that like in 2000. Forever ago. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. In 2004, I had the pleasure of being at a live event with him where he did a 4-day, basically lecture of his entire book and really activated. I remember going up to him. I was having this major emotional release and going up to him and just like I didn't want to be crying in front of him, but basically I was crying in front of him, and I told him, I said, "You just explained what was in my mind scientifically for over the last 4 days, and thank you." And he said, "What's your discipline?" I said, "I was a chiropractor." And I didn't know that he left Stanford and went to the chiropractic school up in the Bay and wrote, like that's where he developed his principles. I didn't know that till after the fact. And he put his arm around me and said, "That's the right discipline." And I thought that was really
that's very
that
cool.
was a big. So since then, I've met him a few times, and then finally. We're talking about Joe Dispenza. When I used to live in Denver, Colorado, I was friends with his early publicist, and I had the opportunity to meet him and have dinner with him a few times. And this was early on in my career. And I said, "Joe, I saw you in What the Bleep Do We Know?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I want to do what you do." And he said, "Then you have to become an expert and in your industry, and then just do it." And I remember saying to myself, because I was already doing my work, and I said, "You know what? That's fine. I'm already kind of an expert." And I've been on this journey, and him and I have crossed paths. In fact, we're in my second book together called Wake Up Happy Brain. And he's one of I'm one of the co-authors with him and Bruce Lipton and a bunch of other amazing visionary authors in that book. So we've been crossing paths over the years. I'd love to reconnect with him personally. But I've always said to myself, these are the applied sciences for what Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza talk about at their workshops. These need to be there. So I feel like that's what's coming in the new earth as we begin to expand these retreats and workshops. And I could go on. But yeah, those are probably the top. I think I gave you 4.
Yeah. Yeah, you cheated by 1, but I'll, at least 2 of them were former podcast guests and 2 of my all-time favorite people and interviews, both Bruce and Joe, 2 amazing human beings, just super, super epic. Where can people find you? Website, social media, etc.
I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Dr. Steven Schwartz or Dr. V.I.B.E. You can put in Dr. V.I.B.E. On Instagram. We're really active on that platform. Bioharmonic Technologies on Instagram. Facebook, also, Steven Schwartz is my personal. Feel free to connect with me there. Also, Bioharmonic Technologies on Facebook. We have a really amazing YouTube channel, Bioharmonic Technologies. You can find us through that website. We'd love to have you subscribe. And by the time that this comes out, I'm sure our app will be out, the Vibrational app on iOS and on Android. We'd love to have you join our community to be part of that. And then our website, bioharmonictechnologies.com. We have a landing page that'll take you right to our shop. And we have all kinds of packages and specials. And then really you can sign up through our newsletter through our website as well too. And we're very active with bi-monthly newsletters, really keep us. We're always on tour going someplace. I'm leading a retreat in Sedona next week for a week. So I'm going to be probably out in Arizona for the next 2 weeks in Scottsdale and up at the Vortex. Also, I'm part of another group called harmonizinghumanity.org. And my dear friend and compadre visionary, Tsunami Diamond, that's his main site. And it's a live platform for global consciousness to raise the vibration of the planet. And I'm an ascension. So I'm their ascended doctor.
Cool.
And so these are all places that you can connect with that everybody here can connect with me. And also, drstevenschwartz.com, SCHWARTZ, Steven, STEVE, drstevenschwartz.com. And that's where you can find about my book, Primal Resonance, Discover the Secrets to Health, Vitality, and Optimal Human Performance. One last thing that I would like to plug is, on top of this whole thing, we're also launching a vibrational music production school out of Pure Mind Music Production School in San Francisco. And level 1 is just coming out now. We're putting the final touches on it. So within the next 2 weeks, it's going to probably be live. So puremind.com, Puremind, PRYMIND, like pyramidmind.com. Also, we're going to be promoting that through Bioharmonic Technologies. If you want to make music for our app or for the V.I.B.E. or just for your own personal enjoyment, the prerequisite level 1 class is going to be coming out. And then we're going to be immediately starting to work on levels 2, 3, and 4 for really coming out with making music. We want to be able to add you to our platform.
Cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So whether you're a practitioner or a music producer and you want to learn about the healing aspect, or you want to learn about the music production aspect, we're going to be incorporating all of it.
Radical. Dude, good stuff.
All right, let's go eat.
This was amazing, as I knew it would be. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for vibing with me.
Thank you. And thank you for vibing with me. It's number one most important. It's my first rule of engagement. And thank all of you. Thank you, Instagram. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you everywhere. And yeah, man. Let's all harmonize humanity.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.